I think Web3 is having an identity crisis. If you look at what has been successful and what has gained a lot of traction in the past 6 months, 12 months, is meme coins. But I don't think it was ever the intention to turn everything Web3 into memes and memify the whole world and just turn this into like a 24-hour pump and dump attention grab kind of relationship with the community. So I think there's a little bit of soul searching going on, and I think it's good for a younger industry like blockchain and Web3 because you don't want to have the identity crisis when it's $10 trillion market cap, because then the effects are much more serious and deep than what happens with a couple billion.
Welcome, everybody. This time we have Brad Yasar. Brad is crypto OG, has been, in the space for a lot of years, and we're very happy to welcome you. Hi, Brad. How are you today?
Hello, Christian. I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. We met in Singapore, actually, at Token 2049 half a year ago. And Brad was very, very nice enough to, give us the chance to do this interview. And here we are. So let's, start out directly. How did you enter the blockchain space from the beginning on? Yeah, tell us more.
Well, my foray into blockchain was actually pure luck. I had a friend of mine who sent me 3 files to compile in 2009. He said, compile these, you're going to love it. And I thought he was trying to infect my computer. So I created a virtual environment for it, compiled the files, ran them, and it was a Bitcoin node and a Bitcoin wallet and a Bitcoin miner. So I started learning about Bitcoin by compiling these programs and trying to figure out what the commands are and what I can do with it. Couple weeks into that struggle, I decided, let me search for this thing called Bitcoin and figure out what it is. And I read the Bitcoin white paper, and of course, it made more sense. And that was my first interaction with any blockchain, the first blockchain, and then it grew from there, starting with mining.
Wow, that's a great story. So were you like a technical person before that, or did you already interact with a lot of these technologies before, or not?
I've been programming since I was 6 years old. So yes, I've been very familiar and hands-on with software and hardware all my life.
Wonderful. That sounds great. And what were some of the initial events, that you remember in terms of the blockchain industry?
It's been a long time. Obviously, I remember the local meetups that happened in different places in Los Angeles, in New York, Toronto, different spots in Europe. That was before name brand events started. And then around 2014, we started an event series called D10E, and Michael Turpin had his events. Now it's called Tokenize. It evolved into Tokenize. And then, of course, Satoshi Roundtable started, and one of the earliest ones I remember is that one, and then Consensus, and so on and so forth. So the earliest recollection I have is being very quiet on the sidelines at meetups, just seeing how people envision this technology working and what they plan to do with it. That's my earliest recollection. Then the meetup in New York with Nick, that was a memorable one, especially the street show and Doge parts of it. And then, of course, the North American Bitcoin events in Miami are always fond memories.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I mean, if one looks at your LinkedIn profile, I think there are more than 70 or 80 positions that you have been working in and on. I mean, that's an amazing experience that you bring to the table. So how do you like what does your average day look like at the moment? Are you like super busy or more enjoying the sun?
Well, let me clarify the LinkedIn first. So I do have a lot of positions, and I made a shift in 90s with my LinkedIn. I went from a functional LinkedIn where most people put their skill sets and experiences and try to promote themselves. I switched that around and wanted to promote the project, put them first before I talk about myself and my skill sets, because I felt confident that I can get that information in person better. It doesn't have to be on the LinkedIn side. But if I can draw more attention to the projects that I'm working on and involved with and invested in and so on and so forth, it helps the project gain more traction, visibility, legitimacy. So my LinkedIn is structured as how many projects I'm involved with. And most of those involvements are not day-to-day operations. So let's get that clear. I'm not working 80 jobs simultaneously. That would be inhumane and not practical at all. I, to the second part of the question, I try to structure a balanced day where there is some sunshine, some time with family. As my kids are getting older and my parents are getting older, I really want to make time for them and spend more time. And the other part of the day is structured around, of course, different projects, different calls and meetings and with different teams. But I try to balance it out. If I go really focused on work for a couple days or a couple weeks sometimes if it's needed, then I try to take a break and rebalance it with some family time and me time.
Wonderful. That sounds like a good mixture and enjoyable life. That's cool. So tell us more about your most exciting projects of these days. You know, what are you excited about?
Most exciting project. So there are a couple of things happening right now. We with Beyond Enterprises, as you may know, we have a global venture studio, and we're creating a parallel um, structure in the Middle East now in UAE. So that's very exciting because we always had a global focus, but the headquarters were in North America, and that had its advantages and disadvantages from especially travel perspective. Now with this dual location model, we're gonna be much more closer to Asia and Middle East and Africa and support projects a lot more closely with this model. But of course, going back to what I'm focusing on, I'm still working on EQIFI and uh, without revealing too much, working on the next version of it and next iteration. So it's going to be quite exciting when we actually get it to the finish line, because I know a lot of people have been following it and expecting to see some good movement. And unfortunately, last 2 years have been very slow and focused on preservation instead of growth. But I'm thinking we're going to change that in 2025.
Well, that sounds very promising. And about Equify, maybe. So I understand that this is a financial, a banking protocol with sort of improved efficiency and reduced sort of costs for everybody who's involved. When will we see some news there?
I don't want to disclose
Okay.
anything or promise anything and miss the target. So
Okay.
I'm gonna leave that as soon. But yes, the goal and the biggest challenge since we launched was always the cost and the speed at which we can deliver the services. Because from day one, our platform was capable of delivering all the products and services that we promised and described in our white paper. But the effectiveness of delivery has always been a few clicks below where we want it to be. So it's always been, how can we do it better? How can we improve things? And I think that cycle is coming to a good place now.
Yeah, do you think usability is an important topic these days, like in blockchain applications in general?
Absolutely. No, I mean, usability is probably the number one thing. You can have the best technology, you can have the most sophisticated product and service. If the users cannot um, learn it quickly, feel comfortable performing whatever steps they need to get the results they want, then it becomes a dead end because people try it once, they say, yeah, this is faster, maybe it's a little cheaper, but it's so much work. I want to stick with my traditional bank. Or yeah, I know I can just do everything on this site, but here it's a little cheaper and I have the time to go through the additional steps and I'm going to go with that. So I think usability is key to large scale adoption.
Wonderful. And do you see yourself more as an entrepreneur or an investor or somewhere in between?
Just to give some color to your listeners, I have over 300 investments and it's growing.
Wow.
Even with that track record, I will always be an entrepreneur first. I fell in love with entrepreneurship with my first company. It cemented itself with the first exit I had, and um, I felt like I found what I was meant to do, build things. I love building things. So if someone asks me pick between investor and entrepreneur, I'll pick entrepreneur all day long. That's easy. Now, the beauty of investing is in my lifetime, I went from being able to learn everything there is about computers and computer programming when I started, everything, every language, every system, to a place where now it's impossible to do that. There's no one that has the bandwidth and the time that can learn everything right now. There is the computers because it's branched out so much. So what I really enjoy about investing is I don't have to be the entrepreneur who figures out everything in every industry and every use case. No, there are um, parallel conversations going because there's hundreds, thousands of very talented, very smart, very brilliant, very ambitious entrepreneurs. And I can be one of them, or I can be the investor that supports hundreds of them. So, from an impact perspective and feeling really connected to certain industries, I think being an investor really satiates something different than being an entrepreneur.
That's wonderful. I truly admire and support that definitely. So, where do you see the status of Web3 today? How would you describe the development of the industry, and does it meet your expectations, or did you believe that it would develop differently?
I think Web3 is having an identity crisis right now. If you look at what has been successful and what has gained a lot of traction in the past 6 months, 12 months is meme coins. And I even wrote about them. I researched it. I learned, how, why, and when it works. But I don't think it was ever the intention to turn everything Web3 into memes and memify the whole world and just turn this into like a 24-hour pump and dump attention grab kind of relationship with the community. So I think there's a little bit of soul searching going on. And I think it's good for a younger industry like blockchain and Web3, because you don't want to have the identity crisis when it's $10 trillion market cap, right? Because then the effects are much more serious and deep than what happens with couple billion. So in a way, I'm happy that we're having this conversation right now as an industry and as a community, and not 10 years from now. On the flip side, it's not where it's supposed to be, because blockchain now, with help and enhancement of AI, is supposed to make our lives better, not just turn into this casino mentality where you only look at projects to extract short-term gains and then you leave, and literally anything else that happens after that point in the project, you're not interested in. I think that's a very shallow relationship with with the industry. It's like grabbing a book, looking at the cover. If you like the cover, buying the book and immediately turning back and returning the book because you read the cover and the back sleeve and now you're done with it. And then you're missing out on all the content, all the story, the experience that's inside between those two covers. So I want to go away from where we are into more building and building things that affect people's everyday lives in a positive way, and enhance the human experience. Especially with AI and blockchain combined, we have a lot of paths in front of us to take what today's society is, and next step can be something incredible and fascinating if we go in the right direction. If we go in the meme direction, then the whole world is going to turn into a big casino, and we're going to have a lot of people gambling with everything they have in their lives. And I don't particularly wish for that outcome.
Yes, thanks. I mean, to me, that is one of the most important steps we need to take in that industry, and it's like so overdue. I also believe meme coins are, are a use case, a valid use case, but it shouldn't be the only thing that we're focusing on. There should be so much more, and that's why we all entered the market. And yeah, I'm missing that discussion a little bit as well. So are you, a Bitcoin maxi or an altcoin admirer, or a little bit of both worlds, or?
That's a good question. I don't think people would call me a Bitcoin maxi. The reason for that is a very narrow mindset and limits. Like, I don't believe everything we build that uses blockchain should be on Bitcoin. That's for me a very limited expression of what can be done. So, do I think Bitcoin is a very unique digital asset? And do I try to have more of it than less? Yes. I mean, it goes without saying that if someone offers me a Bitcoin and equal amount in some other coin, my gut reaction is going to be, I'll take the Bitcoin. But this one can go up 10,000%. I know, but let me stick to Bitcoin. Let me stick to what I know. Now, having said that, in my portfolio, I have so many other coins and so many other projects with their own coins or their own blockchain that has nothing to do with Bitcoin, that I fail to qualify as a proper Bitcoin maxi. Like, you look at Michael Saylor, they have Bitcoin. That's it. They have an AI company and Bitcoin. Those are their assets. So for people to say he's a Bitcoin maxi, it's relatively simple. It's really easy to define that. If they look at what I'm involved with and everything we're doing, they're not gonna say, "Oh, Brad is a Bitcoin maxi." But at the end of the day, you know, that's an asset that we're heavily invested in and supportive of.
And if you look at the altcoins, is it more Ethereum or Solana, or do you support any of the L1s, L2s more than any others?
So let's think about it. There was Bitcoin, and then there were attempts to build on Bitcoin. And then when those attempts didn't yield the results that people hoped for, Ethereum was born, because very quickly we realized programming and developing on Bitcoin is very arduous at best, and highly impractical at worst. So with the birth of Ethereum, now people realized having a virtual machine, having a programming language attached to the blockchain that natively interacts with it, is the future. Unfortunately, Ethereum did not capture everyone's minds and hearts and all the use cases. So we started getting other chains and layer twos. For me, there's Bitcoin, where I think not much there needs to change to keep it stable and as is, because it works. And then there's the evolution of programmable blockchains. And there you have the two important aspects: adoption, which allows you to reach a lot of people and drive revenues and fees and so on and so forth. And then you have the technology, how fast it is, how quickly it settles, how quickly it executes, how easy it is to program, how much resources do you need to run your app or your node, or things like that. And from that regard, I think the third generation, fourth generation blockchains are much farther ahead than Ethereum. So if you ask me Ethereum or Solana, I would say Ethereum. If you ask me Solana or Arbitrum or Polygon, now you know there's competition, because the speed and the finality and the cost is becoming very competitive. And I think you know, I'm platform agnostic. So when we work with clients, when we advise, or when we build something ourselves, we don't look at a tribal, oh, we need to build on this chain or that chain. We look at, okay, these are the tech specs we need and the performance we need to achieve. What blockchains support that? And then we look at that and, you know, uh, drive the development in that direction. But if you ask me what layer twos I like, base is pretty impressive. You know, as something to compete with Solana, that's EVM.
Wonderful, wonderful. That sounds like, you know, our approach a little bit, because we are also looking into you know, the industry in general. And you know what I think is interesting. I entered the market late, you know, roughly 1920, and you know, I see a lot of the narratives that we've seen then, you know, that the infrastructure is missing and that we need to build more rails. Still today, you know, and do you feel that there is a missing development in terms of applications? Are we still building rails on top of each other without, you know, proper being able to connect them and bridge them? Or do you believe that that this is important and the rails are, you know, not yet ready, and we need more of them?
That's a loaded question. I personally would take what we have and improve upon that. So anything that comes brand new is basically a missed opportunity to improve something that exists. Now, the challenge there is you have the liquidity wars and improvement proposal wars, where the people who left Ethereum and created other chains, they left because they didn't see their vision being realized with those blockchains. So they said, I started this, or I'm using this, since I can't change it, I'm going to build my own. And that's actually a really natural and normal thing. If you don't find you identify with something existing, you try to create your own version of it. And forkability and innovation is it's the backbone of blockchain industry. So I can't sit here and say, no, we don't need any more blockchains. We probably could build something incredibly more efficient and more inclusive and faster and better with as the technologies evolve. I don't know what that is right now. Right. If I had to project, I can, but off the top of my head, I don't know where we will take it. I think with um, quantum computing, once quantum computing becomes at a personal computer level, it gets to that level where you and I can buy a quantum computer and use it at home. At that price point, we're probably going to see an incredible evolution, uh, like generation jump in blockchains and AI and everything else. Until that point, I think these iterative approaches of each new layer one being slightly different and slightly better or very narrowly focused on a specific industry or task is the direction to go. And for me, it's always exciting to need to learn uh new structures, new architectures, new ways, to create this blockchain infrastructure. So I you know I think it's going to continue in the direction of new things coming. But for me, I think we have the tools to build real life applications and use cases that we need to innovate industries, because there's still industries that are not even Web 2. They're Web 1. Like they use technology so old that their systems are running on AS400s, and you can only have a static page and call them. They don't even have email support. You call them and someone answers. So there's a lot of real life innovation we can do with what we have. But at the same time, blockchain is always going to get better and reiterate and fork itself.
Yeah, I mean I heard an interesting comparison of looking at data centers where in the early 2000s we had all these co-location centers where everybody had their servers and it all looked a little different, and we only shared pretty much the electricity. And then if you look at server centers today, they look like very streamlined and very very much the same, and usually are only for one bigger company. So that might be that might be a development that we will see, because I personally feel that even a lot of the OGs sometimes, they sometimes struggle to bridge assets from one chain to another, and I feel that is pretty weird after so many years in the industry and the development of the industry, that a lot of these sort of bridging topics are still not solved with the new technologies. I consider that as at least surprising to me, if I'm only 5 years in the industry.
And it's natural. If you look at airlines still use dot matrix printers. If you've boarded a plane recently, you hear that sound, and you're like, "What's going on?" Oh, there's a printer that's putting dots on a paper to create letters and numbers, and that's a technology that was developed in the 70s. So they have not changed that. And that's in a microcosm what's happening with the OGs. If you started with Bitcoin, you feel comfortable with Bitcoin. You have your Bitcoin wallet, you have your Bitcoin exchange, you have your Bitcoin hard wallet. Now, someone says, "Can I send you Solana?" It's a completely different blockchain. And yes, the modern wallets encompass all of the top blockchains, and it's easy to swap in the wallet. So it's getting there, but it's still quite not there. So if someone says, "Christian, I want to send you some Edge or Neo," I mean, you're just going to be like, "Wait, that does not show up on my wallet, and I don't have that set up on my Ledger or Trezor. How do I do this?" And then you start researching, and it's a brand new learning experience. So I think the comfort level goes from, "I'm an OG, I'm 100% comfortable," to, what is coin and what is base and what am I doing here? And you get anxiety and you're thinking, okay, this I need to study this, I need to learn what's going on. And so it just slows down adoption. I mean, that's why a lot of people personally, not the institutions, companies, but personally would only be okay with a few assets that they interact with. They know USDT. You know, you want to send USDC. Okay, it's both could be on Ethereum, so they're okay. Or if they're on Ethereum and you want to send them something on Tron, they're like, I don't know what's going on. Like that's a new DEX, new wallet, and that's normal. You know, technology shift is very difficult to usher, especially once someone gets very comfortable. Like, how often do you want to change your desktop or laptop? I don't want to change mine at all. I only do it out of necessity when, you know, it's too slow or the battery dies. But if I could use my old device, I'm like, I'm fine with that. It gets things done. And it's the same thing with blockchains, you know, it works. You're good with it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I fully relate to that. And well, let's see what the time is gonna bring for our industry here. So, you know, we met in Singapore, and since then also a lot of things happened. A lot of the altcoins suffered a little bit during the last couple of months or maybe even years. Um, we have been, also coming up with this topic of staking, Ethereum or coins to support other token launches. Do you, in general, support these models, or do you have an opinion about it? Should we, follow up on this, and should we double down on it, or what do you think?
It's a way of fundraising. If you're talking about staking to support the project, then receive rewards in those in the native assets of the project, or staking to support the L1 or the L2, the ecosystem. I think there are risks associated with any staking, and I'm not talking about scams or anything nefarious, just the assets not being in your control and you trusting them with a smart contract. It doesn't even have to be other people. It could be, wallet to smart contract. Still, that lock, that freeze, that transfer, however the staking is done, is taking that asset out of your control. So, in principle, if it's a long term investment, I think you have to assess the risk reward. Do I want to stake my Ethereum? Me personally, I don't find the rewards in Ethereum staking uh, high enough to warrant my assets going into staking pool. But some people do. And there's no right or wrong way. It's like saying, do you want to invest in AI or do you want to invest in a restaurant? Some people are going to say no, because that doesn't fit my risk profile or expectations. Others are going to be very successful restaurateurs and, create generational wealth with it. It doesn't mean it's a good or bad kind of comparison. It's just for some people, it's a good fit. Others, it isn't. As far as launching projects, I've seen a lot of success with, taking rewards, supporting the project, and fair distribution. And it's a model that we came across and used a couple of times successfully. But is it a good fit for every project? Not really. I mean, sometimes you want to do an equity raise. You don't even want to bring tokens into it so that the whatever you're building can really serve the blockchain community the right way. And other times it may make more sense.
Wonderful, wonderful. As you might know, we're a community of builders, and one of the concerns I had in the last, cohorts we had was that some of these ideas that were selected by the teams weren't sort of as as good as you need. I mean, the idea is only 5%, execution is 95%. We all know that. But if you start with a bad idea, then even the best execution might not get you anywhere. So So do you have a request for a startup? Do you think that there's an idea missing that the market should actually already have offered, or are you sort of agnostic and look at everything that's coming up?
Well, I'm a builder, so when I find those ideas, we start building them. But
You start build.
as a request, I would love to see easier ways to um, connect communities and blockchains. And I don't mean by that bridge from one to the other or atomic swap or anything like that, but truly connect in a way where if you look at any L2 and Ethereum, there's still a disconnect, right? The Ethereum community does not always want to support L2s, and L2s want to get as much liquidity out of Ethereum onto their blockchains because that's how they are going to generate fees and support themselves and get more traction. And that's not a collaborative relationship. You can bridge any asset from Binance Smart Chain to Ethereum or Polygon or uh, to Base, but that doesn't mean those are really connected, interconnected, and supporting each other. So I would want to see more solutions that bring liquidity across board and fee sharing across board and really merge the communities. Because if we could have all the EVM communities support each other, and this was a topic that came up in the Cosmoverse here last year in Dubai when I was there. And there's a lot of issues with liquidity because a new project launches or a new blockchain is connected and they just suck out liquidity from the other ones. It's almost like a zero sum game. And I think we can do uh, architecture and structure things in a way that benefits both chains and that grows both chains. And I think there's a lack there, maybe out of self-preservation or misunderstanding that it is a zero-sum game, and if liquidity leaves my platform, it's going to go somewhere else. So that's competition, and I don't want that. I think we need to change that mindset to create more interconnectivity. So that can be a new wallet, that can be a new exchange, that can be a new swapping platform. And all of these things are being worked on right now by different groups. So I know someone is going to crack the code on it, but that would be really exciting. And then, of course, I do want to see more projects connecting traditional finance into DeFi. We're working on one, but I want to see as many as possible because there's still such a gap when you're trying to go from any traditional financial product to a digital one. It's almost like 5 steps that could be eliminated tomorrow with some technology and some sensible regulation, and we're not doing that. So those would be very exciting for me to see and to back and to use.
Wonderful. Yeah, that those would be great projects, and we will forward this to our builders. Maybe one a question about decentralization. Do you fully support fully decentralized projects, or are you even a decentralized maxi in a way, or do you think the combination of centralization and decentralization is good, or
So I fully support decentralization. If there is a way to do something, whether it's a process, a business, a community organization, fully decentral and decentralized, and with inclusiveness and empowerment of the community, 100%. The challenge is like, let's take banking. Right now, there's no jurisdiction where you can get a banking license as a DAO. It just doesn't exist. There are some jurisdictions that recognize DAOs as business entities, but not licensed business entities, more like social and maybe small business. So if you want to be compatible with traditional systems and players and compliant in the environment you're going to operate in, it is very difficult to decentralize everything. But as much as it's possible, I'm 100% supportive. And then the other challenge is some industries are much more difficult to decentralize than others. Just because centralization, as much as it takes power and control away from the community, simplifies things, right? I mean, if you were to try to that's the biggest challenge that a lot of the blockchains are trying to solve more and more efficiently, so we can do it faster and cheaper. The validation and the registry, but it's very challenging. It's easy to say, okay, Christian is the boss. He has final say. Whatever he says, we're gonna do, because that's one person, and you say what we do, and we do it. That's easy. It's very difficult to say Christian, Brad, John, and Jack, they're all need to agree for something to happen, because humans don't agree on everything. I mean, we seldom agree on the same topic to the same level, to the same extent. So it's very challenging. And the more challenges you introduce to a system, to an architecture, the more costly and at times slower it gets. So yes, for decentralization, but I would say we take a phased approach and let's do as much as we can and decentralize, but not try to decentralize things that push in the realm of illegality, because that never works. Then you're dealing with something other than just the social norms and technology challenges. Now you have governments coming after you, and we don't need that.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting topic, like how to, make sure that these decentralized and pretty much often unstoppable project theoretically, still fit the sort of legal requirements of, humanity, I guess, because in the end, what kind of state would apply their legal requirements to a DAO? It's really hard. It's a super interesting topic that I'm very, very interested in, because we're also a platform to start DAOs, and yeah, we're thinking of like how we can maybe manage an environment where there is AI involved and the development involved. So really super interested to keep the discussion going, especially with with your experience also. So yeah, now really I have to say thanks a lot for this interview. It has been super interesting, super exciting. You have so many exciting projects going on. We all hope that the market is going to develop in the right direction, not only focusing on meme coins. And yeah, thanks a lot, Brad, for being here on the show today, and hope to see you in one of the future shows, maybe.
Thank you, Christian. I think we can do just a show on DAOs and regulation and how to be compliant and, how to build the next big thing. All of these topics are so near and dear to my heart. I can talk about them for hours.
Wonderful. I will plan that in, maybe sooner than you think.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.